Welcome back. Today on the channel, we're going to take a look at some MMA fights that should have been stopped earlier. It's one of those things Dana White and the fans worry about the most, and one of the hardest jobs the referees have. Choosing whether or not to stop a match is a judgment call, and it has to be made seconds after a fighter gets hurt. Any fighter who steps into the UFC naturally comes under tremendous pressure. However, it's arguable that the referees officiating inside the octagon are under just as much. It's the job of the referee to ensure that each UFC fight is officiated fairly and safely. However, mistakes do happen. Number 8. Glover Teixeira versus Anthony Smith at UFC Fight Night 171. While the entire commentary team talks about how the fight needs to end, it shows that someone has taken more damage than they need. That's exactly what happened to Glover Teixeira when he took on Anthony Smith. In the third round, Smith was dropped by Glover, face-planting him into the canvas, but the Lionheart soldiered on. There were many moments in the third round when referee Jason Herzog could have stopped the fight, but for whatever reason chose not to. Smith even told his corner that his teeth were falling out, but they didn't seem to acknowledge it. Smith went into the fifth round without landing a single strike, and the fight mercifully ended in a minute. After the fight was over, Dana White and the fans were quick to criticize Jason Herzog and Smith's corner for not stopping the fight, but the American insisted he would have fired anyone who threw in the towel. Number 7. Luke Rockhold versus Chris Weidman at UFC 194. Chris Weidman and Luke Rockford faced off against each other in December of 2015. The fight was expected to be an even contest between two elite middleweights, but when Rockhold took Weidman down towards the end of the third round, he gained a full mount with 70 seconds left in the round. Rockhold threw 75 elbows and punches to the face of Weidman, which left him wide open. Weidman's face was left bloodied, and he wasn't even able to stand completely. The corner of Weidman kept telling him that he was winning the round, but lost it in the end, rather than looking at his condition. When the ground and pound started again in the fourth round, referee Herb Dean jumped in and stopped the fight. But I guess it was a bit too late, as Weidman had taken a lot of beating at that moment. Number 6. Max Holloway versus Calvin Kattar at UFC Fight Island 7. Max Holloway broke the record for the most significant strikes landed in a single fight when he faced Calvin Kattar in the main event of Fight Island 7. The former featherweight champion landed a total of 445 strikes. The strike differential in that fight was a whopping 332. This was Holloway's first fight since his consecutive losses to Alexander Volkanovsky. The Hawaiian was looking to silence his critics, who argued that the former featherweight champion might have lost a step. Holloway went into the fight with a point to prove, and he did just that. As soon as the bell rang, Holloway showed off his superior striking. The sheer volume that Holloway put on Kattar was frightening. Towards the championship rounds, Kattar's face was bloodied and bruised. Either the referee, Kattar's corner, or the doctor should have stopped the fight due to the amount of damage he'd absorbed. Bless got so comfortable during the fight that he started yelling at the commentary team while dodging attacks from Kattar and landing his own. Holloway yelled, "I'm the best boxer in the UFC." Holloway was so dominant in the fight that two judges scored the bout 50-43, while another judge scored the fight 50-42 in favor of him. He ultimately won via unanimous decision, but most fans and fight analysts would agree that the fight should have stopped much sooner. Number 5. Charlie Ward versus JOAO CARVALHO. On April 9th, the 28-year-old Portuguese fighter JOAO CARVALHO stepped inside the cage against Charlie Ward. He wouldn't step out. After being pummeled unconscious, CARVALHO was brought to the emergency room. He died 2 days later from massive head trauma. Both Ward's father and buddy, Conor McGregor, the two MMA pros in the world right now, put the blame on the referee for not stopping the fight earlier, as Ward delivered several punishing blows to CARVALHO's head after the fighter was clearly unconscious. It could have been stopped a little earlier, McGregor told MMA Connect TV. Number 4. Amanda Nunes versus Raquel Pennington at UFC 224. Amanda Nunes is the greatest female mixed martial artist of all time. She demolished almost every challenger that was put in front of her, but a few of her fights stand out due to their brutal nature, and one of them was her little defense against Pennington. When the fight started, Nunes took control and put up a phenomenal striking display at Pennington. After the fourth round was over, Rocky returned to her corner and said, "I'm done." Her coaches, however, convinced her to power through and try to end on a high note. In the fifth round, she got hit with a barrage of strikes on the ground, and the fight was finally stopped. This corner exchange between Rocky and her coaches has ignited an everlasting debate in the MMA community about whether fighters need to go out on their shield or yield to fight another day. Number 3. Rich Franklin versus David LOISEAU. One of the key tenets of MMA is that you don't stop the fight as long as both participants are still actively defending themselves. That was the justification for allowing this one-sided beatdown to run its full 3-course round at UFC 58 on March 4th, 2006. How bad was it? Franklin landed a crushing 211 strikes on just 26 for LOISEAU. In fact, the only damage Franklin took the entire fight was self-inflicted. He beat LOISEAU so badly that he broke his own hand from punching the poor guy so many times. As a result, both ended up in the hospital, a totally unnecessary result given how obviously lopsided the matchup was. Number 2. Alexander Volkanovsky versus Brian Ortega at UFC 266. The rivalry between Volkanovski and Ortega started when both were announced as coaches for The Ultimate Fighter. The two squared off at UFC 266 for the featherweight championship. After being struck by nearly a double in the first 2 rounds, Ortega brought his submission skills to the table and almost finished off the Australian. But the Great showed his championship pedigree and escaped all the submission attempts from Ortega. T-City was hit by 61 significant strikes in the 3rd round from the featherweight champion. Ortega was nearly finished as the round ended, but was put back on his feet by his quarterman. According to Volkanovski, the doctor and the referee gave Ortega time until he answered their questions correctly and thus was allowed to carry on. By the end of the 3rd and 4th round, Ortega's right eye was quite swollen and he had a deep gash on his left eyebrow. If he wasn't such a seasoned fighter, this could have posed a real problem in the future had he taken more damage. But the referee Herb Dean defended his decision to allow Ortega to continue, saying that the doctor cleared him to fight. Number 1. Anderson Silva versus Michael Bisping. Here's another fight from 2016 that should have been stopped earlier than it was. In this case, referee Herb Dean was criticized both coming and going because he had 2 different opportunities to end the Silva-Bisping fight, but inexplicably let it continue both times. First, Bisping lost his mouthguard. Usually this results in a stoppage, but Dean determined that since they were in a heated exchange, it wouldn't be fair to stop the match. Bisping thought otherwise, and while he was asking Dean for a stoppage, Silva smashed him in the face with a flying knee. Bisping dropped to the canvas, and Silva began celebrating his win. One problem: Dean didn't end the fight, and while Silva was celebrating, Bisping scraped himself up and hung on until the bell, winning a very controversial decision on points. This is one of the rare cases where both athletes complained about the ref's decision not to stop the fight. Bisping ended up with the win as a result, but also with a trip to the hospital and a face full of stitches. And with that, we've reached the end of the video. Which one of these hilarious decisions by the referees amazed you the most? Do tell us in the comment section. For more sporty videos, make sure you subscribe to our channel and also ring that notification icon. Goodbye.